Shalom family, we're pressure canning today, meats and beans. Our processing time for pints is going to be 75 minutes and for quarts, 90 minutes. I'm canning about 2 pounds of chuck roast. You see how high the price is. $5.46 a pound, it's crazy. I had some leftover mushrooms and I'm going to add them with my roast. But you can add whatever you like, potatoes, carrots, etc. Whatever you like, you can add. So I'm canning chicken as well, and we'll get back to the chicken in a little bit. I have more of the chuck roast, and notice it still has a little bit of frost on it as I turn it around here. But it's best to be partially frozen. It makes it easier to cut. But again, it's $5.47 a pound. And a little over 2 pounds. And I'm also canning 5 pounds of ground beef as well. Now back to the chicken. I'm canning almost 5 pounds of chicken breast. I've already packed the jars pretty good. And I cut them up to about 1-inch chunks. And for all the meat, I use a good pair of kitchen shears to cut it up. That's what works best for me. But I make sure that the chicken is pretty packed down. And I'm not going to put any liquids in the chicken. They will cook in their own juices. I filled my jars with roast and the mushrooms here. For the most part, each jar is going to be filled, giving me 1-inch head space at the top. And that is to the bottom ridge rim of each jar. I'll show you a little later. So I am using a Presto 23-quart canner. And I'm going to be using 2 of them today. And I'm showing you the inside measurements, but you can't see the one that's lower at the lower level. And that's the one that I actually use for this canner. And I am going to insert the rack because this canner comes with 1 rack. So I'm going to put that on the bottom. And of course the jars will go on that. But I have a second rack that I purchased. I got it from Amazon. It was about $17. And I'm going to be packing the canner with a total of 18 pint-sized jars. And it's going to be a mix of the beans, the roast, and the chicken. So that's going to be my first batch for the day. As you can see, I used 3 quarts of water to fill my particular canner. And I am going to use this small container with white vinegar. And I'm going to use that with some towels, and I'm going to use that also to pour afterwards into the canner. So I'm going to use that to clean the rims of the jars. But before I do that, I want to make sure I debubble. So I use the debubbler, this green tool here, to remove the bubbles from the jars as I'm demonstrating. And I just chop up and down, and sometimes along the sides if I have something solid like meats, just to get rid of any potential bubble airs that can cause problems. So, but I didn't do it for the chicken. I just make sure that the chicken is tightly packed to remove any of the possible air bubbles. So here's what I do is I dip my paper towel in the vinegar and I squeeze it out pretty good. And you just want to go around the rims of the jars just to make sure that they're clean, especially for meats or anything that might be greasy. And you know what I forgot to show you here was I forgot to show you when I added the spices. So you want to do that prior to your debubbling. You want to add your spices. And what I did was I used about 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder and onion powder for these guys. But when I add the broth, I don't use the canning salt. For the items that I use the canning salt on, like for the chicken, I use the 1/4 teaspoon of that. So then you want to make sure that your lids and your rims are clean and ready to go. And as you can see, I have a canner here that is room temperature. All of the items that are going inside these canner are room temperature as well. And this is for you, sweet Danette Daniels. You wanted to see the inside of the canner. And so that was the first layer on the first rack. This is my second rack. I'm going to put it on top. And then I'm going to stack from there. So, well, I have my ground beef, and it is still brownie. Still has a little bit of browning to go. Oh, it's a little out of focus. Hold on. Alrighty. Okay, that's a little bit better in focus, but you can see it's not completely brown. And I kind of like to get mine brown before I actually put it in my jar. So we've got our roast with mushrooms here, and you see that they're filled to the 1 inch head space there, and you want to make sure you do that for the most part for all of them. I put the lids and the rims on, and they are good to go. This is my second my double layer rack in the first canner. We have here the canner lid. That is the pressure gauge with the numbers on it, the pressure vent pipe, and the plug. There's the pressure vent pipe. And as you can see, we are good to go. We are filled in. We've got everything that we need to get this first batch going. So again, Danette, you wanted to see what it looks like when you fill up one of the pressure canners. So this is a double layer. We have my vinegar that was left over from cleaning the rims. I'm just pouring it inside now. And this is to make sure that we can remove any of the film, or make sure we don't get any of the film, not remove. Make sure we don't have film on our jars after we have finished our processing, because of course it makes it harder to clean. And this guy here is our pressure regulator. For me, I need to have 10 pounds for my area that I'm in. I'm checking on my ground beef again. So I need to have a 10-pound weight for my my weight regulator. And my reading, when I have it, when we get ready to get things going, I need to have it set at about 10 to 11. So everything started at a cool process. So I have set my stove temp at high. It's between 7 and 8. As you can see, the gauge is at 0 because we're just getting started. While that is heating up, I'm going to work on my second batch, and that's going to be pinto beans. And I'm going to do these pinto beans in the quart size regular mouth jars. My jars are all clean and ready, and I'm checking on my ground beef again. It's getting there. We're getting to the point where it's getting brown like I want it to be. So I am checking also on the first canner. I'm going to be looking for steam out of the pressure, the vent pipe. And no steam yet, so we're going to go back to our pinto beans. I'm using the beef broth here. That's the 32 ounce. I'm going to be, for the whole process of the food that I'm doing today, I use 2 of those containers of the 32 ounce broth. Got that over at the Dollar Tree. And then what I don't use in the broth, I use in water, or I mix it with water. So I'm getting my beans all good and clean here, you know, rinsing them through. They were pretty dirty. So I'm cleaning my pinto beans, got them all good to go. For a pint-sized jar, you fill the jar with beans only a ½ cup. For a quart jar, you want 1 full cup. So I do it just a generous full cup and a generous ½ cup. So pint, ½ cup of beans. For the quart, you want a full cup of beans. That's how I measure mine. So we're looking good. Looking at the vent pipe, looking for our steam to see if we have our steam coming out. Because once we get our steam flowing and it's a steady flow, then what we want to do is we want to time it out for 10 minutes. Let it vent for 10 minutes. After it has vented, and you can barely see it, but you can see steam coming out of it, and it is a steady stream. Once it starts a steady stream, I set my timer for 10 minutes. After that 10 minutes is up, I put my weight regulator on, and then wait for the gauge to go from 0 to about 11. But I'll tell you, in between, you see the regulator is dancing there. In between, I adjust my temperature from high to where you see it between the 4 and the medium. I work it down until I can get it before it gets to that 10. I work it down so that it gets to a temp that is comfortable for me, so that I know that that's going to dance when it needs to dance. So you have to do what works for you and your stove and your regulator to make sure that you get the timing right. I've got my beans in the second canner. As you can see, I have the beans, a half a cup, and then I fill the broth up to the top level of where the beans are at. Fill the rest of it with water up to the 1-inch headspace. I am able to get the quarts into the canner and get that started. So now to the next batch. The ground beef has completed. It's all brown. So in order to make sure that I have a filled canner to process, I have done another double layer. And so what I've done is I've added beans also to the ground beef. So, and they're all in the pint size. So here we go. We got the quart size in this canner here, and it is coming up to the temp that we want. And I am doing the second layer of the pint size with the ground beef and the beans in my other canner. So we are dancing and we're doing good with our pinto beans quart size, and I have completely filled up this canner here with the pints, double layer, and they are good to go. And here is the first batch all done. Now what we're going to do is let these all sit. They're all going to sit overnight, but don't they look great? They look awesome. You know, I don't have the sound on it so you can hear it, but one of the greatest sounds that you can have after you have processed your canning meats and beans and whatever else you're canning is to hear that pop pop sound. And these guys are popping left and right, which is absolutely amazing. So I have my first batch all good and done, and I have my lids off on a few of the jars so far. So what you want to do is, after you've let it sit overnight, you get up the next morning and you've got all this fantastic food that you have canned, and you want to take the lids off. I'm sorry, not the lids. Scratch that. You want to take the rims off of all of your jars, and you want to clean them really, really good in some warm, soapy water, so that when you get ready to put them on the shelves, you don't have to worry about bugs or anything like that. Your jars are good and clean. And then you can store your rims for use another time, at another time. But don't they look beautiful? My black-eyed peas look amazing. My Great Northern, the ground beef came out really, really, really nice. But I'm loving it. This is so rewarding to me. This is so satisfying to know that I'm able to put together shelf-stable foods for my family that I know are good for us, because I know what I put in them. And so what else do we have here? How about the chicken? Remember, I did not put any liquids in the chicken, but you can see that the chicken cooked down and it's got its own juices. It cooked in its own juices. But everything came out really, really well. I am pleased that everything sealed. No problems whatsoever. I hope this was helpful to you guys, and please like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Shalom.